Okay, so welcome everyone to my channel. So my latest video was a sim flight video using VR. So today I'm using the same setup, but I'm trying to make it as realistic as possible. So I have a 700 Kraken, which I know in the simulator differences between models are not as significant as real life counterparts, but I do have this model. I'm using my V-Control Classic, and for real I'm using a V-Control Touch. I'm using my DJI Mic 2, which is the same microphone that I use for recording when I fly outside. Of course, when I fly outside I put the windscreen, but it's not necessary here since there's no wind in the basement. Um, and I'm gonna try to see how it helps me. So this is the idea. So the idea that I have is to try to burn on a little bit more of muscle memory. So what happens when you're flying? What happens to me when I'm flying is that because I'm flying for real, in here I don't care. If I crash, I crash, and I just reset. You know, if I crash, then that's no problem. It actually went all the way and it hit me. So, uh, you know, in real life, of course, that's not acceptable. But in here, it's fine. Nothing happens because it's just practice, right? So because I don't have that fear of crashing, what I do is that I'm gonna be forcing myself to multitask. What I mean by that is that in order for me to get better, what I want is to not have to focus so much on my movements. So when I fly for real, I focus a lot and I don't speak too much and I try to focus on what I'm doing. And if I'm talking, I do something very safe. In here, what I'm going to try to do is to try to talk, through the maneuvers and see, if I can actually get to to burn that muscle memory into my mind. So this is the theory, and I've heard that some other places. So for example, they recommend, let's say, if you want to learn an instrument or if you want to learn something that needs practice and muscle memory, I've heard that what you can do is do two things at a time. So you you try to do if you have a phone, for example, then open up your phone and put a YouTube video while you are flying, while you're simming, right? That'll force your brain to focus on two things, which means that you cannot focus 100% on your flying, right? On your movements. So you have to rely on muscle memory. So the idea that I have, and that's what I'm gonna keep trying to talk and talk and talk and talk, is, and I'm sorry that that's boring, but if it's of benefit to you, then that's gonna be awesome. So what I'm trying to do is to try to burn my muscle memory, and the problem that I have is mostly with the backwards orientations. So what I'm doing when I'm doing, I'm not a great pilot, you know, doing things like super locked in or super nice, on my common orientations or on my strong orientations, which are upright forward orientations. I know what to do, right? If I'm getting out of control, I usually know what to do. I know what to push, and I don't usually get confused, right? Same thing with flying forward inverted. I've been doing that a lot as well, and I'm very confident I can, try to do these and change from here, and now I want to go this way, and then I want to go that way, and I don't get confused. It happens, of course, but I don't get confused as much. If I start to tilt a little bit more, a little bit less, I know what to do, and I'm usually there, right? But that doesn't happen when I'm flying backwards inverted, because if I get into trouble, in here, I'm just following the momentum of the maneuver, just following the momentum. But as you can see, I got too close to myself, and because I'm not measuring everything there, I tilted a little bit too much, and in here I went backwards for me because I lost that, you know. So that's what happens when I'm flying backwards inverted. When I'm flying backwards inverted, of course, in real life, I'm, you know, I'm scared to death to do any of these because that's going to be a crash, right? Or an injury, right? So the thing is, if I learn how to burn into muscle memory these movements so that I don't have to think about them so much, which means that when something weird happens and I get into a little bit of a weird orientation, I should be able to get out of it. I should be able to just let my fingers and my subconscious brain do the work, right? Because in here, I can fly backwards and better, yeah, fine. But I'm not, as you can see, I'm not very proficient at it, and if something goes wrong, I have to think, okay, so what did I do? Which way am I really going? Okay. And for me, it's gonna be very easy to crash or to get, to a place where I don't want to be, right? The same thing happens if I'm trying to fly, backwards upright. Same thing happens. I usually don't fly backwards, and again, I picked up a little bit too much speed because I banked a little bit too much. So what I'm not really doing the maneuver correctly. I'm not in full control of the helicopter. I'm just trying to follow the momentum, and if something goes wrong, I have a hard time thinking what I need to do. And those split seconds you use to think what you should do, the helicopter's on the ground behind you, or whatever, right? So what I want to do is to practice while being distracted. Okay, so in here, pure flips, and again it went behind me. And where is it? Okay, I crashed. So and in here again, I don't have the guilt that if I crash, I'm out of a helicopter for 6 months, right? I can just go back to flying. So the idea here is to try to get distracted, by talking or something. In here I don't have, I can only see the VR, right? So it's not like when you're simming with the screen that you can actually have like two screens going at a time, or like I said, a phone or something. Maybe you can listen to music, but try to really get into the music as well. Not just okay, so that's music and it's there in the background, but really to make sure that it's music that maybe you really like, that you usually sing to, that you can get distracted by, right? That's the idea, to get kind of distracted and making your brain think about more than one thing, so that you force yourself to get these right, to get those orientations where they should be, to make sure that that doesn't happen, right? That you don't mix up your orientations. I was at a height that and an orientation that, oh my gosh, it's not really what I expected. Then you don't know what to do. You start thinking about it, and then you crash, right? That's what I don't want to happen in real life. I mean, of course, yeah, crashes will happen, but if um, you are able to control the helicopter and do more fun stuff with it and come back with it most of the time in one piece, I think that's, I don't know for you, but for me, it's what I get a lot of enjoyment of the hobby. So, um, so this is what I'm going to be doing. Of course, this is also because I live in a part of the world where it gets many months with cold weather. So I'm going to try to take advantage of that fact, and this is the closest I can get to flying. You see how I cannot really get the helicopter in a good altitude and in a good position. So this allows me to practice that without guilt, and also without being able to fly, right? So I don't get to spend money or time, fixing my helicopter, and I get to fly because right now I can't fly because of the cold. I know that there's people that fly in the snow and on cold weather and such, but I'm past that stage. I don't think I like to fly. To me, the hobby is enjoyment. It's getting out of what you usually do, and it's something that you should enjoy. And being cold and crashing your helicopter and breaking more than it should because plastic gets brittle and parts get brittle and you get more damaged, it's not fun for me anymore. So what I do instead is to just woo. I think this, yeah, this is coming towards me. Okay. So, there I got quiet because I had to focus really hard on trying to understand what orientation I was in. So, if you can achieve losing that concentration while you're flying and just making your fingers do what they should do to get the helicopter do what you expect it to do without thinking which movements you need, then that's what it's about, all about, and that's what I'm gonna be trying here. So, if you've stuck with me so long, thank you very much. I don't know how long I've been flying, to be honest with you, because I don't have a timer. Because right now, I'm actually also standing up. I'm trying again to mimic real flying as much as possible. So, if you like this content, let me know. I'm gonna keep on practicing both for you and for me, because for me it also helps to understand where I'm at. Right? It's kind of like a log of, okay, so this is where I was, 1 year ago, and this is what I was practicing during this time, so on and so forth. So it also helps me, to have this log of my flights. So it also helps me to record my flights, but it also helps, to share it with you guys. And if you like it, and if you agree, and if you want to take this approach, and it helps you, I mean, even better, right? So it's if you stuck this long, thank you very much. Whoops, thank you very much for sticking with me, and I'll try to land this thing and to finish the video. Alrighty. All right. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.